US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order freezing all US aid to South Africa. He's accusing the government of human rights violations as it relates to land expropriation and the alleged discriminatory targeting of South Africa's white minority Afrikaner population. Now, the signing also creates a pathway to refugee status for the Afrikaner community. These events have further increased tensions between the two countries, as well as left various segments of South African society at odds. For more on relations between South Africa and the US, we're joined by international relations expert, Prof John Stremlau. A very good evening to you, Professor Stremlau. Thank you for your time. I mean, we've seen US President Donald Trump freezing aid to South Africa. And if one really takes a bird's eye view of this entire situation, surely it's capping years of growing tension over everything from Russia to China to Israel. What's your perspective?
Well, my perspective is somewhat different than Donald Trump's because I live here and I understand that the land reform or expropriation bill is not threatening to any landowner. It's and the U.S. has an eminent domain provision in its regulations, so it's not a concern. But more importantly, the excuse that they have used on DEI is that's part of the Constitution of South Africa, if they knew anything about South Africa. And the Afro Forum messengers surely influenced their biases. They're all white nationalists and tribalists that this egregious, and I'm quoting the title of it, addressing egregious actions by the Republic of South Africa. It's 500 words long, and it's letting in refugees when they're expelling millions of immigrants who are already there. And it's only 280,000 members in Afro Forum out of a population of 660 million people. And the whites in this country are no more than 8 million. I mean, 8%, probably less than that now. So, you know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it's not reflective of the goodwill that many Americans feel towards South Africa.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've also seen Trump aides attacking South Africa, from the likes of U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to South African-born multi-billionaire Elon Musk, who's Trump's advisor, asking questions on X. I mean, Musk's being quoted as saying, "Why do you have openly racist laws?" And then we saw Rubio announcing on X that he will not attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg because, according to him, South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property. How best can this be managed? Because surely both sides, be it US and South Africa, will be impacted by these tensions.
Look, it's terrible that he's freezing what are significant programs of cooperation between South Africa and the United States. And I'm old enough to remember that the U.S. was for decades allied with the apartheid regime in the Cold War, and they considered the apartheid regime an ally, and that's what brought me into South Africa originally, because of the contradictions in Jimmy Carter's human rights priorities. So that this is not a new problem, but it is a problem that's being articulated by people who are white nationalists, including Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, David Sachs. You know, they're all around Carter. I mean, all around Trump, but Trump has these predilections, and now he's got people who can, implement them, as Musk is. And in fact, Rubio statement on X, which is Musk's outlet, sounded like to me Trump speak, and including the capital not attending, in bold letters, and the reasons being totally nonsensical if you know anything about South African history and the realities on the ground here.
So it's not just pure ignorance. It culminates from somewhere. I mean, last year we saw South Africa's then Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor flying to the US on a crisis management trip when the US Congress was discussing a bill to possibly punish South Africa for its staunch criticism of Israel's brutal war in Gaza. How much would you say South Africa's position on Israel has exacerbated the ties with the US?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about in the U.S. I'm impatient, even though I'm sympathetic to the Gazan refugees that are in the Midwest, and they demonstrated their outrage at Kamala Harris for being sort of moderate on this question. And what they ended up doing by not voting it or staying home was helping advance the Trump candidacy, and he is disastrous. And he's got a penchant for ethnic cleansing. He put his arms around Bibi Netanyahu, and his Saunders, his ambassador designate to Israel, is for eliminating the Palestinians from the territories that Israel, I think, wrongly claims. But, Mahmoud Mamdani has written about the settlers and the natives very, very usefully, and he's cited the Israeli situation as classic, and I think it is.
Where to from here? I mean, what impact could this relationship have for both sides if tensions grow further?
Well, tensions are not likely to grow further because Trump has done what he can do in freezing the aid programs. But I do think that the fact that the South Africans are hosting the G20, I assume that everyone is going to show up. And that is an opportunity for South Africa to work with the other members of the G20, although they have very different political systems and outlooks. South Africa has maintained good relations with China and good relations with Indonesia and Brazil and the like. So I think that this is a good opportunity to focus on Africa, focus on South Africa. And I even recommend in a piece I've written that Africa should be considered for the hosting the 2026, because the U.S. is scheduled to do so. But if Trump doesn't show up and Rubio won't show up, then I think the U.S. has forfeited the hosting role. But that's my opinion, and that I know the diplomats will have to negotiate all this. But I just think we ought to think positively about this opportunity rather than think of it only as a problem, because Trump does not reflect the majority of the American people. He didn't even win by a majority. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much for weighing in on this conversation. As we round down the conversation, joined there by international relations expert Professor John Stremlau.